I guess what I'll do is just kind of talk a little bit about what I did with the career readiness grades, um, and then kind of find out what you guys are doing with them, because I don't think I'm doing a real great job with this either. So I guess I'm just going to start by kind of walking through what I did this semester, and maybe in here is something good. So this was kind of a rubric put together, I think, by Teresa Rasmussen last year, pushed out to the staff. So I just captured the 4 areas here: the work ethic and readiness, the feedback and improvement, the collaboration, and the conduct and attitude as being the things that we have to grade these kids on. And the one I really went after this semester was this work ethic and readiness. And the reason I went after the work ethic and readiness one was that I felt like this was where I could kind of compensate for the fact that I'm not supposed to grade their homework anymore. Someplace in here, I could build that idea of, are they doing their work, are they not doing their work, and give me something so that if a kid's getting C's and D's on their test and they come to me and say, well, I'm not doing very well on my test, I can go back to this and say, well, look, you're not doing any of your practice work, so how can you really expect it to come out any differently than that? Now, in deciding to do this, I kind of did it informally first semester and found out that I needed to clean it up a lot second semester. And the first thing I needed to clean up was my communication with the kids. So at the start of the semester, I kind of laid this out. I said to the kids, look, homework is going to fall into one of 3 categories here. And my homework that I give the kids is either a Tier 1, a Tier 2, or a Tier 3 assignment. My Tier 1 assignments are designed to develop a concept. They're assignments that everyone must do because the things we're doing in class are hinged so tightly on whatever this particular assignment is. These are assignments where the kids are starting to dig into some unfamiliar material. I'm not overly concerned with the correct answers on these assignments as what I am that we just generate some initial thoughts to go with this. They're kind of our background assignments. I do grade these assignments for completion, real simple 0, 1, 2 scale for these. They are part of the course letter grade built into a category of my grade book called Lab Journal and Concept Building Activities, which basically is the section of the grade for all the day-to-day stuff that we do in class. Chemistry is obviously one of those classes where we're doing a lot of things, and this is where they get their grades on the things that they do. So this is still part of their course letter grade. And that may be outside the spirit of not grading homework, but I need them to do these assignments in order to be ready for class. And this is still the only way I've found that I can get them to do it and be ready. Tony?
What percent?
Well, the category it's in is 30% of their course grade, but it gets lumped in with their lab journal, which is worth like 90 points, and with their journal quizzes, which are like 15 and 20 point quizzes. So that 0, 1, and 2, in the end, mathematically isn't much of their grade, but it seems to be at 0, 1, and 2, it's enough of their grade that they get their work done. Honestly, if a kid didn't do any of these assignments, but they did everything else perfectly, I'm guessing less than 2% impact on their course grade, but I don't really advertise that. Then our Tier 2 homework, this is where I feel like we're practicing. We've learned the concept, we've done some similar things as a group, we've had our discussion. At this point, it is entirely possible that a kid knows completely what they're doing, and some kids are going to need some practice. This is homework that I feel like everyone should do it. I don't keep points for this. I keep track of it, and this is where I build in the work ethic and readiness grade. These assignments get dumped in a different category in my grade book and ultimately determine the work ethic and readiness grade.
Do the kids know ahead of time what if it's a Tier 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. And that's really where I kind of dropped the ball first semester. I had these ideas in my head, but by not expressing them to the kids, I think it left them always guessing, am I going to get points for this? Am I not going to get points for this? And they would get real frustrated because they would guess that it was one they weren't going to get points for, and then I would take points, and then they would spend an hour doing something, and in the end I wouldn't take points. So first semester I really dropped the ball by not communicating this. This semester, I've been meticulous. When I put it on the board and assign it as homework, I give it a tier. When I enter it into Schoology and their homework calendar, I give it a tier. So I'm
So
very.
this is like a take-home assignment. Let's say you give, do you actually grade it?
I do not grade it.
I mean, not put in the grade book, but do you
No,
physically
no.
look and see if they, or do you just look at it and say they did it?
The tier 2 assignments, I look at them, I mark it. I decided on a 3-point scale. 3, it's all the way done. 2, you almost had it. 1, you got started. And 0, you didn't do anything. These are the assignments that we go over in class, that they have the opportunity to make corrections. Basically, I'm looking, hey, did you take the time and effort to do the practice? And so I sort of lump all that together toward work ethic and readiness. And then the tier 3 assignments, I don't do anything with them at all. These are further practice. So you did the tier 2 assignment, but you got them all wrong. You made corrections when we went through them in class, but you want to try once more to see if you've actually got the hang of this. So posted to Schoology, I have a wide variety of further practice assignments. Those assignments have answers. They have answer keys, often with fully worked solutions for the kids who just want to try it once more. I never go back and check. I don't even know who does these. Sometimes I'll know that a kid is doing them because they'll bring them in to get some extra help, and they'll say, I'm stuck on this one. Can you help me? And so in that way, sometimes I know who's working on the tier 3 assignments. But it's a further practice thing. A kid who did their tier 1 and they did their tier 2 and they got them all right, they really don't need to do the tier 3. They've got better ways to spend their time. And I do try to emphasize that to them, that if you can work all these problems and get them right at tier 2, you don't need to spend the time on the tier 3 stuff. It's just more practice with what we were practicing with. The other thing I have built in here is the unit review problems. Before my unit tests, I post to Schoology a set of review problems complete with answers. They have the option to complete and hand these in before the test. I do record who does their review problems and who hands them in. It goes into that work ethic and readiness grade. And the perk of doing these ahead of time is if they hand them in before the test, that's where the retake part comes in. They can do their retakes for 100% credit of their earned points on the retakes. If they opt not to do the review problems before the test, they still have to go back and do the review problems if they want to reassess, but they only get 80% of their earned points on the reassessment because they didn't demonstrate to me that they were prepared ahead of time. If they
have to do the review problems.
If they want
do them the first time, they have to do them again to get the test.
In order to reassess. So, I mean, in a manner of speaking, it's optional. I always compare it to insurance. You wouldn't take your car out and drive it until you put insurance on it. I sure wouldn't take my chemistry test out and drive it until I put insurance on it. So I kind of equate them to putting insurance on your chemistry test. You do these problems, check them, you hand them in. Now you've got an insurance policy. If something goes horribly wrong the day of the test, you can have a redo.
Do you feel kids, because you said the answer key's there, do you feel kids just recopy it on a piece of paper?
In chemistry, the answer is only about 10% of what they have to hand in because they have to show all their work for all their problems anyway.
So your work is not on part of
My work is not on the review problems. All that's there is the final answer. So they really can't just go out and copy the answers. Now, they can go out and copy their neighbor's answers, and I probably can't put a stop to that.
You could almost tie that to all the assignments for that unit. If
You know-
had twos on everything.
I tried
and
that.
unit-
I tried that last year, as trying to tie that to the reassessment. Messy. Way more messy than could possibly be managed. Because then I had kids who were absent yesterday, so they didn't have the opportunity to do the assignment. Well, then what do I do with that kid's grade? Or I'd have kids who didn't get the homework done, but then they would want to leave class while we went over the assignment because they still wanted to do the assignment. And in the end, deciding who could have full credit and who couldn't have full credit involving that many different levels of assignment was really messy. Although in my heart of hearts, that is really what I would like to do for the test assessment. Although I have learned something this year keeping track of these tiers. I have a group of kids who can basically get A's on these tests, never doing anything but their tier 1 assignments. And I don't think they deserve to be punished for that. I really don't. And tying reassessment to both the tier 2 and the review problems, I think would almost punish those kids.
Well, would they have to reassess though?
My reassessments are broken down into very tiny pieces, and occasionally one of those kids will want to reassess one problem. And so I don't want to say, well, no, they can't reassess that one problem. They've gotten 8 other problems perfectly right, and they just want to get a perfect on all of them. So for those reasons, I've gone away from tying it to the Tier 2, but the primary reason was I just couldn't keep track of it all. It ended up being just a mess. Within my grade book, I had to get that set up a little bit differently, but I did learn some stuff.
Todd, where are you going? You got to stay the whole time, Jacobson.
So one of the things I learned here is that with my grade book, here's my Mod 6 class, and I've got my regular grades, all my scores that generate my letter grades, but I did not realize until this semester that these standards for the Career Readiness Report Card actually will allow you to input assignments here as well. So there's all my Tier 2 assignments. They're tied into my work ethic and readiness grade. To put it into a different category, when you input this from your assignment list, down here in the scoring, you can stick it into this category. I set
have
up.
a question right now, just
Yeah.
because what's the difference between points and marks?
I don't know.
I don't have
It doesn't
any
matter,
idea.
Just so you know what you do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it all comes out the same. I found that out last year because
Okay.
they were all marks, and then this year I'm like, I'm gonna do all points.
I have no
Does anybody
idea.
have any idea?
No,
Sorry.
none. None.
Just
I-
thought of it because I just saw it.
I use points only because I've always used points, but
Last year somehow I screwed up and they were all marks.
And it came
at
out
the
the
end
same?
Of the year, and I was looking, it already sent out grades. I'm like, why are these in marks? Went back and checked. They were all fine, and then I did points. All right.
okay. I don't know. So maybe there is no difference at all. I know that rubric doesn't get me what I want. So I do it out of points. Like I said, I go with a 0, 1, 2, 3 system on the homework completion. Test review problems, if there's 9 review problems, I just do it out of 9 points. How many of the 9 problems did they do? So I've created a couple categories there. And then down here are my 18-week things. Here's my lab journal concept building activities category down there.
So you uncheck that one so it goes in. No, check that one and uncheck the bottom one, the 18-week.
Yeah.
So it goes under the.
So it goes only there, and it has no impact on their grade whatsoever. I suppose if you wanted to, you could put it in 2 categories. So if I wanted their concept building activity to go into their letter grade, but I also wanted to see those when I kept track of who was doing their work, I could easily put it into both categories at the same time. So I think that was probably, I realize that's not deeply profound, but that was kind of my insight this year, was that it is possible to put things into those career readiness grades and have them in those categories.
Do you then just take the, let's say, the percent that they had on their 0, 1, 2 assignments and then try to equate that to
Multiply.
a 1, 2, 3, 4?
Sadly, I haven't figured out how to get it to calculate something for me in any place other than the actual letter grade. Like, they're all in here,
But it doesn't give you like a,
but
a percent. For
I
that.
can't get a percent.
I got you.
And I'd love to be able to get a percent, but it doesn't seem to be set up to calculate a percent.
So is it just
So-
professional judgment?
It ends up being professional judgment, but often what I find is a kid has got mostly 3s or mostly 0s. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of gray area here.
You can your grade book. You can export that to an Excel document.
And then I
maybe
could
add
get
a
it.
feature real quick. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
that is one way.
That too, if you said that you also could include that in a different category, right?
Yeah.
Then you would get a percent.
Then I
of the
could get a
other one, guess.
percent.
Yeah.
I could get a percent elsewhere. And in the last session, somebody else said they do basically the same thing, but they put it in their main grade book with a weighting of 0.
That's right.
And so then they do have a percentage in that category. I wanted, and I've done that in the past, I wanted it to sort out into these categories. And then I spent quite a lot of time communicating with the parents, helping them to understand that there were 2 things to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on your kid's letter grade, but if the letter grade isn't what you want it to be, go look at this work ethic and readiness, and that may hold the answer to why your kid's grade isn't what you want it to be. And it made for some good conversation at conferences as well. I would have parents who were concerned because their child had a bunch of zeros in the work ethic and readiness category. And they said, well, what's going on here? And ultimately what I explained to them, I said, well, look, your child's got a 96% in the class. I'm not worried about this. These are practice assignments that your child doesn't need to be doing right now. If these are zeros and your kid's test scores are averaging a 97%, I'm not worried, and I don't want you to be worried either. But I said, if all of a sudden the test scores are dropping, now, yeah, you need to worry about the fact that they're not doing their work. And so that was kind of a nice little conversation to be able to have with the parents as well. So that's how I generate my career readiness grade. For feedback and improvement, I've got this one tied to whether they're taking advantage of the test retakes or not. If a kid's got an A or a B and they're not retaking their test, I think that's fine. They're doing okay in the class. But kids with C's, D's, and F's in the class who aren't taking advantage of any of the reassessment opportunities, then I do start to mark their grades down in the feedback category. Basically, they're getting feedback from me and they're not choosing to work on any of their areas of weakness as far as that goes. Just kind of backtracking for a minute to the work ethic and readiness one. I consider the tier 2 assignments and the review problems when I give this grade, but a kid who's got an A in the class and is choosing not to do the tier 2 assignments, I still give them a 3 in this category. I figure they're making that choice, but it's an acceptable and responsible choice for them because they don't need the extra practice in order to master the concepts.
Do you put comments in for everything under a 3?
Yes. Yeah, if I mark a kid down at all, I give them a comment. I have found that keeping track of this makes it much easier to make a meaningful comment to the parents about what's going on. Last year I would have kids that I would think, geez, I just don't feel like they're working very hard. And so I would want to mark them down, but I didn't have anything tangible and specific to document that they weren't working very hard. So this has been good in the sense that it gives me something that I have documented for my general feeling to want to mark a kid down. And then the last two categories, collaboration. I don't do much with this one. Unless I've got a student who is completely unwilling to participate and interact with their peers during class at the times that they're supposed to be doing stuff, or somebody who is just a complete bozo when I put them in groups.
That's right.
Yeah, that'd be, for example, yeah. So I don't do much with that one. And conduct and attitude, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. If you've got a kid who's being a real nuisance in class, this is where you can get at the kid who's being a real nuisance in class. I guess that's pretty much what I'm doing with these. I don't know that I'm doing anything all that novel or all that different. But that's what I'm doing.
All those parent comments, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Not sure what you
What were they again?
Not sure what I did, but
Well, I think what you just explained about putting just a work ethic makes a lot of sense. That's very helpful. Yeah. And I didn't know we could do that, so that's helpful for me too. Yeah.
See, I put mine in my grade book, so it calculates. This was the first year I did it, and it really helped at conferences when the kid was getting, I could go, well, they're not doing any of the retakes, they're not doing any, and there was a percentage there that I could just say, well, 40% of the time, he can retake tests. I had to sign the paper the first day, and the kid, that's the question you get, and so that helped. But I mean, you can show they can see that if you put it in that category also.
yeah. Is anybody else doing anything really cool that we should contribute to the list of stuff here?
I think the biggest we just did in our department this year is, and I made a document with all these 4 on one page and left it blank for a number. We hand it out to the kids the first week, and they score themselves.
Okay.
So we both sign it, because it's amazing. Some kids think they're 4 in every category when they're 2s in my category. It's really amazing. They think that my attitude's great. You come in late every day, you yell out answers, you never raise your hand, and I give you a 2 and a 4. And then we meet with them once, and then we do it again. And I have all year-long classes, so it's kind of nice. By the time we get to third quarter, we're now both, they know why I think they're a 2, but the numbers, because then I fill one out by myself without them, and then I take the 2 and put them together when we sit down, and our numbers don't match up.
It's
And
got
the
to be
kids
very
go,
telling.
it was interesting, and like I said, I have a year-long class, so if you do it 2 or 3 times as you get going, all of a sudden they realize what your expectations are. As we know, our expectations are a little bit different in each area probably anyway.
Right.
But some kids, I'm like, I'm not gonna, but 4, 4, 3, 2, they went. I'm like, how, why do you think you're a 4? You ask them. Well, I show up on time. Really? That's what the kids really thought. That's what we were looking, or I was looking for. I should say.
I was only 3 minutes late today.
Yeah,
7.
that's. I mean, it's amazing.
Wow.
And then you do it a second time, and then they go, oh, I have to be here every day to get a 4 on time. Be in my pretty much. So
I'd like to see us try to tie this to something, in terms of, whether it's, let's say, release for the better students, or, I don't know what you would do with, let's say, incentives for lower level students, but it'd be nice if there was some incentive for them as well to, I don't know what it would be. Maybe that's where we got to put our heads together, but I think we should tie this to something.
Kimberly does, every Wednesday they have late start, early release. And they call them, I think at the high school they do it as well. They call them employability skills, same thing. But they have to have, like as our purpose, 3 or higher in all their classes and no D's or F's in classes. And then they can come in late on Wednesdays, and they have also early dismissal. So they go 2 less hours that day, or 2.5, whatever it is. And it's a huge incentive. If they have D's or F's, they have to meet with their teachers.
Yeah.
So I don't say Ryan's right very often, but I agree with that.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
I do think we're spending a lot of time trying to generate a meaningful grade that nobody is looking at or caring about. I don't think that the parents really look at them. I don't think the kids care one way or the other. So I think we're putting a lot of thought and effort into generating something that doesn't matter to the vast majority of people. So I kind of agree. If we're going to go through this, it should be somehow tied to something that it matters to the kids what they get.
That, and I totally agree with that concept. One of the things that I struggle with this is that for some of, for my advanced orchestra, I hold them probably to a different standard than I do, my freshmen. 4 with them doesn't mean the same thing as a 3 or 4. And so something like that, we'd have to just be all consistent across the board. And I look at this and I go, okay,
I think your
I think that's
expectations
more
should be
straightforward.
higher for an advanced class. Mine are. I mean, a consumer math versus advanced algebra 2.
But then if you're a student in my advanced class, well, I give you a 3 here, but you get a 4 over there, what does that look like to an outsider?
But I think that's true of our letter grades too. I could have a kid get an A from me in general chemistry, but if they did that same level of work in chem study, they'd probably get a D.
Right.
And so I've got a kid in chem study getting a B who probably knows more chemistry than a kid who's getting an A in a gen chem class. So I think that phenomenon is true across the board for most of our
I don't know when they do
bi-level
so my
classes.
I'm about the growth thing. So, like you said, it's different levels of classes you have. I can give a kid a 3 at the beginning of the year and a 3 but in my mind, I know that person has grown. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even though it's the same number, which fits whatever our criteria we're talking about here, but does it mean something to get that 3 than just a number? I run our academy for engineering, and I have Plexus, Kimberly Clark, Bemis. This is all I give them anymore. They don't care about kids' grade anymore. This is the 4 questions they ask me, and I just hand them the kids' sheet. And talking about grades, they don't even, their interview process now, they take them out to dinner. It's the first interview process for Bemis. You want to get hired. Can you sit there and talk to them? How do you treat the waiter? Those type of things. Yeah, you got to have some skills. I'm not saying that, but I'm not going to find a kid that's got 4 Ds. But this is all they want to know.
So then do these grades matter more to your engineering kids?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In my class, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's interesting.
And seriously, all the business I've changed in my, now running there for 5 years, every year I get more and more away from grades. But it's parents, it's not kids. My kid's going to be a 4.0, he's going to Madison, he'll get $100,000 to be an engineer in 6 years. You really? That's what you think? You know, kid hasn't been on time to class once. But the parent doesn't look at that. Not that the kid has to have A, all they look is that letter grade.
Yep.
So how, I wish that this was more of a, you know, but again, how do you find a way that your 4 is like my 4? That's where the problem is.
Well, I think that, just being true to the rubric, makes me think 3.0. Oh, wait, 3.1, 3.2.
Yeah.
Let's see if I get it. Yeah, but it's a lot to go through. It's neat to hear that yours is used so much.
And that's all and my kids know it now. Where they didn't last year, I wasn't, I used it, but it was like, I gotta do this, I gotta put 3, and, and the thing that's really neat is I have most of my kids for all 4 years. And for
Yeah,
4,
you get to watch them grow up.
Yeah, you go through, and parents go, oh, and it's not about a letter grade, because you have that kid. I think that's half the problem, is you see a kid once and you never see him. So then he goes on to you and you and you, and you're 3, and your 3 might be your 4 or 2 or,
Right.
so.
Thanks
Okay,
for,
stop recording.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.